The annual review. The prospect of an annual review can feel intimidating and kind of annoying, right? It's going to take up a lot of your mental bandwidth. There's a load of stuff you've got to prepare for it at a time when you could really do without it. It's just a pain in the proverbial. Unfortunately, there's no getting out of it. You've got to do it. You've got to suck it up. But in my experience, the annual review, like a lot of things on the PhD journey, what you get out of it is determined by how you're thinking about it. If you're thinking about it as this massive annoying distraction that you feel resentful about, then it's going to become a massive annoying distraction that you feel resentful about. If you think of it slightly differently though, you might end up getting something out of it and even enjoying it. Yeah, completely possible. In this video, we're covering everything you need to know to prepare for your annual review. If we've not met before, hi, I'm Dr. Elizabeth Yardley, and in the 2 decades I've been supporting graduate students, I have seen a lot of PhD annual reviews. I've sat on annual review panels, I've prepared my own students for annual reviews. I've seen annual reviews go horribly wrong. I've seen annual reviews that are positive, pivotal, transformational moments on someone's PhD journey. And I've learned a few things about them along the way. So let's get into it. Let's start with the purpose of an annual review. So before we get into all the how-to stuff, let's step back for a moment and think about the purpose of the annual review. What is it for? Whilst the finer details of annual reviews are going to vary from one university to the next, the general purpose of them is as follows: to assess your progress. Are you on track? Have you achieved your milestones? Are you starting to slip? And if so, can we catch you before you do a massive PhD faceplant? To evaluate the quality of your work. Does your research meet academic standards in your discipline? If so, great. If not, what can we do to pull it up? To provide constructive feedback. What are your strengths? Where do you need to improve? To identify any upcoming challenges. Are there any obstacles on the horizon? And if so, what needs to be done about them? Your annual review is not supposed to trip you up or expose your weaknesses or be an awful experience. It's supposed to be a supportive process. And yeah, I get it. It doesn't feel like that. It really doesn't feel like that, but it is. One of the trickiest aspects of your annual review is presenting your work to a panel that might include some unfamiliar faces. There might be people from outside your discipline, people you haven't met before, people you might know of but feel a bit intimidated by. And most of the time, you don't get to choose who's on your panel, so you're just stuck with them. So, get to know your panel. If you can, find out who will be reviewing you. And a quick search of their academic profile online can give you a good sense of where they're coming from. If you're a qualitative researcher and there's a hardcore numbers person on the panel, it's good to know that. It doesn't mean you have to change your approach, but it does mean that you can prepare for some of the questions they might ask, some of the objections or criticisms that they might raise in relation to your research. And keep it clear and simple. Think about who's on your panel. If they're from a different field or a different discipline, they might not be familiar with the jargon and the acronyms and the inside jokes of your research area. So ditch the technical stuff and explain your work in a way that's going to make sense to someone outside of your field. And in doing so, you're not dumbing it down, okay? You're not dumbing it down. You're just making sure that everyone's on the same page. And that actually shows a real depth of understanding, and your panel will really appreciate you for doing it. Now, as I said at the start, every university does annual reviews a bit differently. So before you dive into the preparations for yours, make sure that you read those guidelines, okay? Go through them with a magnifying glass. Seriously, this is going to save you so much stress and anxiety later. Pay attention to what you've got to submit. Is it a progress report? Is it a draft chapter? Is it a plan? Is it a sample of your data analysis? Be aware of the deadlines too, because missing them is not a good look. As soon as you know what they are, mark them in your calendar and plan backwards from them. And you want to be really aware of any deadlines that exist prior to your review panel. So it might be that the panel need the documents a week ahead of the actual face-to-face session with them. It might be that they need them 2 weeks ahead. So don't assume that you can just go along on the day with your stuff. Really pay close attention to those finer details. And I can't stress how important this is. Messing up the instructions, or worse, doing something that totally goes against them, can be really frustrating for your panel members, and it's going to distract them from the quality of your work and the progress you've made. Believe me, I have been on panels when students have just come along and done their own thing, and we've all been like, and they've been like. So triple check everything, okay? Before we get on to the next section, I want to hear from you in the comments. If you've got your first annual review coming up, what are you worried about? What's keeping you up at night? If you're an annual review pro and you've got a few of them under your belt, what is your advice for the newbies? What do you wish someone had told you about the annual review process? Get typing, let's help each other out. The documents you turn in and or the presentation that you give will set the tone for your entire review. So let's make sure they're working for you and not against you. Here is how to make them as solid as a rock. First up, keep it clear and structured. Your panel members will be reading a lot of documents. They will be watching a lot of presentations, very often back to back. And your review might be the first of the day, or it might be the 15th of the day. And by that point, everybody's just running on willpower and caffeine. So don't make their lives difficult. Use clear headings, straightforward language, and a logical flow. They need to be able to grasp your research really quickly. Make it suitable for a non-specialist audience, and keep in mind what you know about their research. How might you need to adapt what you're saying to resonate with them? What are some of the things that they might pick up on? Be upfront about challenges. If you've hit roadblocks, don't panic. Nobody expects your PhD to have been smooth sailing. So instead of hiding any issues or leaving out any embarrassing stuff, explain what you did to tackle that. Explain what you did to cope with that. This shows resilience and problem solving, which is exactly what they want to see. Before you submit your documents, before you give your presentation, have a final check over everything. Typos and grammatical errors and punctuation problems, they can make your work look rushed, even when it hasn't been rushed. So give them a final proofread or ask your supervisor or a peer to do so before you send them in. Pace yourself. Don't rush through your presentation or your answers to the questions like you're running to catch a train or you just want it to be over with. Yes, we know you want to get it over with, but the whole process is going to be a lot less painful if you take your time, you breathe, and you let your points land. And also, it's absolutely fine to pause between the points you're making to just take a bit of a breather. And your audience will appreciate that because it will give them time to make a few notes. Also, it's important to read the room. If your panel look confused, it's because they are. So take the time to pause, to clarify. You might even want to ask your audience every now and then, is this okay so far? Is there anything you don't understand? Anything you want me to explain further? And this is a helpful thing to do because you're not a mind reader. So ask them and pay really close attention to what they're doing. If they're frowning or tilting their heads or melting into the desk, it might be a sign to slow down or just explain things in a different way. Stay cool under pressure as well. If you don't know the answer to a question, that's okay. Instead of panicking, try saying something like this. That's an interesting point. I'll need to explore that further. I hadn't considered that perspective, but here are my initial thoughts. And don't get defensive. If they criticise your work, which they likely will do, it's not personal. They're here to help you refine your research, not tear you down individually. Okay, so you've got to separate criticism of you from criticism of the work. And the annual review panel is all about criticism of the work. Stay open-minded, stay professional, and keep the conversation constructive. Take in the feedback, even if it stings a little. The Q&A. With this, it is all in the preparation. It really is. Look over your work with a critical eye. If there are any gaps or any weaknesses, your panel is going to spot them. So get ahead of the game. Think about the tricky questions that they might ask and then practice how you'd respond to them. Actually say the words out loud, because this is going to make you feel so much more confident going in. Get a friend to play the role of a panel member and throw some questions your way. The more you practice answering on the spot, the less intimidating it's going to feel on the day. And one piece of advice that I always give to anyone going into their PhD annual review is have a question ready to ask the panel. Yeah, they probably won't be expecting it. You've got a panel of people here who are all experts in their respective fields, and they have taken the time to go through the documents you've submitted. They've taken the time to sit through your presentation. So shift the dynamic here. Turn it into a more constructive discussion so it doesn't just feel like a grilling. Here are some questions you might want to ask them. If you were in my shoes, what's one thing you prioritise over the next 6 months? This question encourages practical advice, and it might give you a clearer focus moving forward. If you were supervising a student working on this topic, what advice would you give them at this stage? This gives you a different perspective than the one your supervisor might have, and it may highlight some key areas to focus on that you hadn't thought about before. What do you think will be the biggest challenge I'll face in the next year of my PhD? This question helps you anticipate potential obstacles and plan for them before they become problems. Once your review is done, give yourself a moment, whether it went brilliantly or left you wanting to scream into a pillow. Here's how to make the most of the feedback you receive. Channel your emotions. If something someone said on the panel frustrated you or annoyed you or just, use that as fuel. Some of the best PhD breakthroughs come from proving people wrong. People always say to me,
"Don't use negative things as a motivation."
To which I say, well, I've built a lot of my career on proving people wrong. And that is for a whole other video. But take the negativity, or what feels like negativity, and make it work for you. Turn the feedback into action. Don't just leave it as this vague list of criticisms and file it away. Break it down into clear, doable steps. What exactly needs improving? How are you going to tackle it? Talk it through with your supervisor. They've probably heard it all before. They have. And they can help you figure out a game plan. They can also be really helpful when it comes to sorting out what feedback you actually need to do something with and what feedback you can just leave behind. Because not all the feedback you receive is feedback that you've got to act on, and they're going to help you separate that out. Popping up on your screen right now is another video you're going to find helpful if your annual review involves giving a presentation. In that video, I'm going to show you how not to bore the pants off your audience. Go and check that out. I'll see you in there.